Hello everyone, it's Renee here from Blue Rhubarb Creations, and I'm going to show you today how to wrap a brass hoop and prepare it, wrap and warp it to prepare it for making a circular round wall hanging. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and get started here. So what you're going to need to begin is some macrame cord or wrap cord, rope. You can either get this from your local weaving store or arts and crafts store or Amazon. I think they sell some, but you're going to need some macrame cord to use our wrap around the outside of the hoop. Then you're going to need some warp string or warp thread, and you can pick that up. Any kind of twine, baker's twine kind of works as well, but this one is actual warp thread that I picked up at my local weaving and fiber craft store. You're going to need a pair of scissors, some glue, and a hoop. So this is a 8-inch brass hoop. And what you're going to do to begin is I just cut off a length of wrap cord here just for ease because this is such a big roll, and I've gone ahead and I just like to place a small bead of glue at the top, kind of show that to you, just at the top here, and that just secures the rope to the hoop. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your rope or your cord, and you're just going to wrap like it is around your hoop. So you're going to go from the inside to the outside and around, inside to the outside and around, and you're going to move in a clockwise pattern. So you're going to go from the center at the start and move in a clockwise to the right. Okay, and you're going to do this in a continuous pattern, keeping the sections fairly tight. And to do that, to keep it tight and secure, as I move along, I just keep my finger on the top of where I've kind of moved along and sort of slide it along. So you'll figure out what works the best for you, but you're just going to go ahead and you're going to continue to take your cord, wrapping your hoop around from the outside, bringing it up through the inside and around. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and continue that, and I will catch you guys once you've made your way all the way around from the center, moving around the hoop clockwise to the right, all the way around until we get back to the center. So I will catch up with you to show you how we finish and secure the rope once it's wrapped around the hoop. Okay, so we've made our way back here and we're coming back to the center of our hoop after wrapping clockwise around, and we're getting to the end of our rope as well as the hoop. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to continue to wrap it, narrowing that gap, and we're going to do the same fashion as we did in securing the hoop. We're going to place a bead of glue here. I'll show you, just like a bead of glue right here on the hoop. Okay, you can use craft glue, you can use glue dots, which I do have some here. You could use, typically what I use is a glue gun to secure it. So you're just going to take that glue, and that glue is just going to be underneath this rope. And you've come back to your center and you've wrapped it all the way around. And we're just going to clip the excess. Okay. And to secure the fray ends, take a little bit more of the glue over it and rub it on. So you see that? So you see how you bring it all the way back over to the center, rub it over, and that's it. There we go. So you've gone ahead and you've prepared your hoop by wrapping it for the next step, which will be to warp it. Okay, so that's it. Your hoop is ready to go to warp. See you in the next step. Okay, so here we are. We've wrapped our hoop with our macrame cord. Now what we're going to do is we're going to warp it. So I've just measured out a section. You can keep it on this, but my rolls are so big that I just cut a section of string off. So you're going to start by starting at the top or finding a center point, and you're just going to secure your thread to your hoop with a double knot. Okay. So that's just going to go with a double knot, just like that. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create the spokes or the loom part, because this is a loom. You're going to create the thread pieces so that we can do our weaving. So to do that, you're going to think of this as like spokes on a tire or a clock, however you want to imagine it, but this is sort of like our wheel here. And you've secured it at the center. So if we're looking at this as a clock, this is 12 o'clock. You're going to bring your string directly straight down and across underneath on the back side, and you're going to pull it up and over at 6 o'clock, okay? Then you're going to bring your string diagonally across the hoop to the right of center, over, say at like 1, and you're going to leave about a ½ inch space in between. You're going to bring it over and down to the back diagonally to the left of center at the bottom, about a ½ inch, and bring it up and over the hoop this way. Okay, so we're just going to continue to do that to the right, to the left, to the right, to the left, over and under. And your thread pieces are just going to naturally hook in here, and they're not going to go anywhere. So there's quite a bit of tension that you're going to put on it here, and you're going to create this diagonal zigzag motion. Okay, so we're going to go left and right, and we're just going to carry along here until we again come back to the center. So I want you to continue to wrap the warp thread over the top, underneath to the back, and over, moving from the center at the top to the right, around at the bottom to the left. Okay, so you're just going to keep moving around in this pattern, and I will catch you when we get to the back. Okay, so we've made our way around, and here we are back at the starting point. So we're going to come up from the back and around to the top. Okay, so this is our starting center because that's where we tied it. And what you're going to do is you've kind of made your way around this way. So instead of making another line here, which we don't need to, we're just going to take it through these two thread pieces and pull this tight. So as you can see, when you do that, it creates a center. Okay, so we bring that to the back and we go ahead again because we want to catch all of these pieces to create some spokes in here at the center. So you're just going to keep pulling the string down and pull it tight. And so this will create the center part of our spokes, of our wheel, of our loom, of our circular piece here. Okay, so we're just going to bring it down and over to the front, and once we've done that where it's all secured and come nicely to the center, you're just going to turn it to the back, find a piece, go underneath, and then just secure it with a double knot. Sorry. So to do that, you just sort of pull it through and pull it tight towards the center, so you can see how that knot went into the center. So I'll show that again, where we just take our loose end underneath just the back part, okay, and just do a double knot and pull that knot into the center. So this is the back of the hoop, this is the front. So you have your tail kind of to the back, and this is our front, and it's all centered and ready to go to begin our weaving. Okay, if you have an excess tail here, you can just go ahead and trim it with some scissors. Okay, so trim any loose ends that you might have. So we'll just go ahead and do that. Trim that off, and here we go. And if you feel like you want to trim that, you can trim that as well. Okay, so here we go. We have our hoop ready to go, warped, wrapped, warped, and ready to weave. So what we have here is we have our hoop wrapped and warped as we did in the previous steps, and we're ready to go. And now we're ready to begin and start our weaving process. So to do that, what we want to do is we want to make the center according to this pattern of my DIY Gold Threads kit of the gold starting point center. So to be able to do that, what we need to do is we need to take, in your kit, you're going to receive 3 amounts of gold thread. So you're going to find the smallest amount that is in your kit. And what you want to do is you want to find a starting point on your hoop, and from the back, you take one of the ends and you just pull it up from the back. Okay, and we want to leave a tail approximately about, I don't know, an inch or so. And so we just want to have that there, and we have a starting point. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to do a simple weaving technique of over, under. And what that means is we're going to go over one of our warp threads, under the next, over one, under the next. And what I want you to do is I want you to remember that we have 2 sets of strings here, one on the top, and if you flip it over, you have one on the bottom. With our weaving, we are only going to weave on the top set. So can you see that? There's 2. So we're just going to weave on the top set of the warp strings. Okay, so we have our thread pulled through right here to the start. We have a starting point, and we're going to go over the first one, under the second one. Okay, so to be able to do that is you just take your end and you go over the first one, under the second one. So you just hook your finger and you just pull the string under. So this is going to be the start of our weave, so we want it nice and tight. So what I find helpful is to just sort of hold my finger at the back of that string and pull that first set down to the center. Okay, so we're going to go, we went over the first one, under the second one. So now we're going to go over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under, and we're going to carry this along in a clockwise pattern around so that we finish our first row. And you're just going to, every few pieces, pull that nice and tight to the center. And you will see a pattern emerge as we make about 3 or 4 rows. So let's just do that again. So we're going to go over, under, over, under, over, under, over, under. And we're just going to go ahead and pull that nice and tight. So I find that it can be helpful to either hold it and put your finger at the back, or just to leave your hoop flat as we start these first pieces on a nice flat surface, and that just helps it to carry along. So here we go, over, under, and we're just going to continue this over, under pattern until we make our way all along and complete all of our rotations here. So we're just going to pull that nice and tight. And we're going to make our way back to the start. And so now that we've made our way back to the start, you can see that this is the next one, and here we would go with it. And what you want to make sure is that you have an alternating pattern. So as you start the second row, you want the second row to be opposite of the first one. So the first one right here was an overstitch. I don't know if you can see that. So then the second row is going to start and it's going to be an under it. Okay, so now we're going to go over. Okay, and we're just going to carry along. Under, over, under. You just want to make sure that you're alternating your pieces so that pattern emerges. If we didn't do that, we would just have, there wouldn't be a pattern here, and none of these spokes would lay flat. It would just all be in one continuous pattern, and we don't want that. We want this to be a woven technique which catches all the strings, and you have an alternating pattern as you go. And the pattern will develop as you're moving your threads across it, and you're pulling it nice and tight towards the center. Okay, so this is coming at my second row, and you just see I have to pull that a little bit tight, keeping that towards the back, remembering that we're only weaving on the top. We're leaving a tail at the back. We're not weaving through those bottom threads. We are only weaving through the top row. And we're going to continue this along until you reach about 4 or 5 rows. Okay, so I just want to make sure that you're going along and you're pulling that nice and tight towards the center. And you're going to do that until you have a diameter of maybe like 1/2 inch or so, or about the size of the quarter. So I want you just to carry along and continue to make that over under, making sure you're alternating. And I am just going to finish that up, let you catch up and do that about 4 or 5 rows to make your gold center, and I will catch you back in the next step. Okay, so we've caught up making the first part of our weave of the center gold part, and I've made enough rows that that I'm happy with in this, for this size of the hoop. You can make as many as you want and make it as big as you want. So I'm just going to show you here a little bit about how you can see the weave of the pattern. I just want to give that a little go there so you can see how it's alternating, and it's making these all nice and flat and tight together there at the center. So what we're going to do is we're just going to finish off. So I'm just going to finish by making a couple more rows because we're nearing the completion, and I just want to show you how we finish the back part of this weave. So we're just going to go ahead here, and I'm going to do a couple more of this over under pattern. And so now what I want is, I think I'm just going to do 2 more. 1, 2, and there we go. So now you can see how there's quite a bit of excess here. So we're just going to go, we're going to finish up on this side. It's an over part, and we're going to take that string straight to the back. Okay, so we have it there. That's what we want. Now we're going to turn it over, and you have your 2 ends. So what you're going to do is you're just going to go ahead and you're just going to do a simple double knot of your 2 ends here. So we're going to go ahead and do 1 knot and 2 knots, and then we're finished. So then you have your excess here, and you take your scissors and you just clean up the back by trimming up those ends. And that's it. So there we go. So there we finished our center point. This is the back with 2 threads. This is the front. We've made a nice circular center here with the gold, and we're ready to continue to the next step of putting in roving. Alright, so what we've done is we've made our gold center here of the starting point of our weave, and now we are ready to continue on to the next step, which is to add wool roving. So in your blue Rhubarb Gold Threads kit, you're going to receive 6 colors of roving. So you can go ahead and pick which color you'd like. So I'm going to start for my next row around the gold center. I'm going to go with white. So I have my roving here, and what you want to do is, this is going to be this next step here. It's going to be center, and what the idea behind this particular weave and this particular pattern is to build it from the center out, and you're going to make thickness and texture and color from the inside center part out to the outside parts of your weave. So to do that, if you were just to use this singular piece of wool roving, it would be way too thick. So first, for the first amount of roving that we're going to add, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to split this roving apart. Now to do that, you're going to see this long strand of roving, and you're going to see that the fibers run in a vertical direction. So it's kind of like, you know, if you had a cotton ball or a, you know, piece of cotton or string and you want to split it at the center, it's fairly easy to do. You just need to make sure that you're working with the fibers in the correct direction. So to do that, I'm just going to split it in half first. Okay, so I have this section and now I have half. So I have half of that roving that we had established there, but what I want to do is I think I want to make it just about the size of my finger, you know, my baby finger, about pencil sort of thickness wide. So I'm just going to take just a little bit off again. So you can choose to do this way, or you can have it thicker if you want, but I like to, like I said, to sort of build texture from the center out, and so that is the reason why I'm going with a thinner strand right from the start. Okay, so I'm happy with the thickness of my roving, and I'm going to add this first amount right here. So you go ahead again and you find a starting point, and from the back you bring the roving up from the back at the center all the way through. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead there, and you're going to again leave a little bit of a tail here, okay, at the back. So what we want to do is, again, we're going to continue with this same process of over under, making the weave around from clockwise from the center out. So we brought our roving up from the back, so you'll see that this will be our starting point, and it's going to be over this one, under that one. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and we're going to make our pattern. So to do that, you go over one, same as you did with the gold threads. You find a strand and you just pull it down to the center. So the idea is that we're keeping everything tight and moving towards the center. And the same as the other process that we did, where you're only weaving on the top strings. You're not weaving back here, you're just weaving on the top. Okay, so you're going to see our pattern really start to emerge here as we make our way around. So let's go ahead and do that. And with this, you're probably going to want to make however much your roving allows. I have included in my kits quite a bit to allow for as much as sort of you feel. But I like to maybe sort of go about 4 or 5 rows here for the start, or 3 or 4 rows, sorry. So we're just going to continue along here, over, under, making our way and just keeping it here towards the center. Now a rule, or my rule, I guess, is I just like to do a lot of finger squishing, playing with the texture, playing with the thickness as I go, right? So to be able to do that, you're just going to kind of want to pull and keep it nice and even towards the center, your loops, and here we are. So now we are back at our starting point, okay? And so we have finished one round, okay? So we finished one round here of our roving, and we're going to continue moving along to make a second row. So again, we have an over, and this first one that we started is an under. So we want to make sure that we're following that pattern and we are not overlapping. And we, from the previous one, if it's an over, it's an under, and vice versa, right? So we're just going to continue along here. And we're just going to continue that pattern over, under as you go for a few more rows. Okay, and you want to do this for a total of about 3 or 4, however much you would like there. Okay, so I am going to catch up with you in the next step. As we continue along, I'm going to do 1 and then probably 1 more row, and then we'll finish up this first amount of roving. Okay, so I've gone to the point here of my first amount of roving that I am happy with the amount. I have done 3 rows, and you can see how that's just really done that over under alternating pattern and created some nice thick fluffiness here at the start. And I'm just going to show you quickly how we finish the ends. So I like to make sure that I'm keeping the back of my projects clean as we go. Okay, and so the thing with just keeping things clipped. The thing with roving is you can use scissors to cut it if you want, but it's also pliable enough that if you just want to give it a good tug, then those ends come off and you don't necessarily need to clip them. However, and then you can just tuck them underneath that row and kind of bring it to the center. So we can do that. But if you prefer to have a nice cleaner edge, where we have it here, you can just go ahead, take your scissors and give it a trim. And as you can see, I've tucked under one of the pieces to keep it nice and clean, and everything's gonna lay nice and flat. And so we have our first amount of roving complete and ready to go there. And so that's it. That is our first amount. All right, so we have our gold center, we have our first amount, and now we're ready for our second amount. So we're going to do this in pretty much the exact same process. You're going to take whatever color is next on your palette, and we're going to split the roving in half. This time, as I mentioned in the last video, it's about building from the center out. So this piece of roving is just going to be a little bit thicker than the previous one. So I'm just going to go ahead and split that off. And now I'm happy with the thickness. So you can see this is about a finger thick, a little bit thicker than the last one. And we're going to find a spot from where we went the last time. And we're just going to go ahead again and bring it from the back. See that? From the back, and we're going to bring it to the front. Okay, and we're going to find that starting point is just to make sure that you are at a piece where it's going to be, because it was an under, you're going to go over, because otherwise we would just continue to have it all one way and all these strings would show. You want to be able to show that thickness and that puffiness by doing that over under. So I've brought it up where this was an under on this one, so we're just going to go ahead, do an over, under, and carry along that same pattern and motion clockwise from the left to the right, over, under, and just keeping that roving there towards the center. Okay, so I like to just make sure, you'll see how pliable this roving can be. So I just like to do a lot of, I don't really have a technical term for it, but just some finger squishing there, right? So we just want to make sure that we're catching all of those pieces and continuing along with this over under technique. And we're building depth, texture, and some dimension to our weave as we're moving along. So we're just going to go ahead here, the second amount. And again, you can decide how many rounds you want to do. I like to sort of have about 3, maybe 4 as we're building our center around. Okay, so we've come back here to the start and over, under, over, okay, over, and then this would be an under. So we're going to go ahead there and just do it like that and just do a little bit of squishing. So I'm going to show you how that row is, and I just like to bring everything to the center and just with your fingers kind of keep it nice and tight. And we're going to go ahead here and we're just going to carry along with the second row over under as we make our way along the hoop. Okay, so we're just squishing that, and when you do that, it tightens all of these pieces up, and it just really brings that pattern up and out there, which is just really lovely. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead, keep going until we run out of our piece of roving and or we reach the starting point. So I think because I have a smaller weave here, I am going to just do 2 rows. You could carry on and do 3 if you wanted. If you want, we could get another row out of this one. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop there at 2, and you can go ahead and carry on if you want. So it's the same process as we did in the last one. Wherever you ended, you just take that roving to the back. We've evened it right to the center, so you can see that there. Okay, we're going to take it to the back. We're going to tuck one of those pieces underneath these warp strings, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to clip our excess. We're just going to tuck these ends that are clipped underneath, and you can see how that will keep this nice and clean and flat as we go, so you don't have those fibers kind of causing some problems there. And then there we go. So then we have our first 2 rounds of roving in and complete. Okay, so here we are. We've completed our first amount of roving, and now we're ready to move on to the next step of adding more gold threads. So in your kit, you're going to see there's going to be 2 more sets left. You're going to want to go with the second amount that's there, so not the longest, but the second amount. And what you're going to do is you're going to take your 2 ends and you're going to put them together, and then we're going to find a point on our hoop here where we're going to bring it, just take a loop there on one of them, so you can see that, loop it like that. And then what we're going to do is you're just going to bring those other ends together here. Okay, so we're just going to pull all of that string up together, and then what you're going to be doing is you're going to be working with all 4 of these strands. So we're just going to set that nice and tight, so you can see how that's looped there on one of them. You're going to pull, but not too tight. Okay, and again, we're still going to do this over under, but we're going to work with all 4 strands, and we're going to move across the hoop that way. So we have it hooped or looped, however you want to say that, on one of the strings, and we're just going to go, oops, I skipped that one. So we're just going to go ahead here and pull all 4 of those strands there. So it's going to be just like this, and I'll show you how that gets caught. So that's all 4 of them. So that one is an over, so we're going to go under, over, and we're going to bring all 4 of those. We're going to be moving from clockwise, the left to the right, over, under, taking all 4 of those strands, and we're going to move this along our hoop, and we're just going to bring it to the center. So you do want it tighter, but not too tight. So probably about like this, because if you have too much tension on there, it's just going to be like super tight, and it's going to make everything buckle, and you don't want the warp strings to buckle. So I just have it all nice into the center here, and you're going to use your finger and just kind of keep it in line, and we're going to continue to move around. Okay. Over, under, from the left to the right in a clockwise pattern, making our way back to the start. Oh, sorry. Keeping that a line, moving across those warp strings with all 4 strands of those gold threads. And now we've been able to make it across here, and we're back at the start. So now that we're back at the start, we have enough of our gold here to make one more row. So I just like to make sure that we're keeping our center symmetrical, and we're just going to go ahead and carry along one more row. I'll show you here. One more row of this gold thread. Okay, just going to carry along. I like to just sort of keep it from my workspace as we move along, and making sure that we're keeping it tight and in line, but not too tight. Okay, so we're just going to go along here. We're almost back at the start, keeping all four ends together as we make our way. We just have a couple more here. I'll show you how we're going to do this. Okay, oops. So we're just going to carry on here. And now we are back at the start, and we've completed 2 rounds. So I'm going to show you that. And you see how I just kind of gave that a little bit of a tug. It's created some nice thickness with 2 rounds. If you want, you could do a third based on the size of your hoop and the amount of thread that you have left over. But I'm just going to do 2 because, again, of the size of my hoop. So where I finished, I'm going to take it over to the back. Okay, so we have it there like that. We're going to take it over to the back, and then I just find it helpful to loop underneath one of these warp strands at the back, 2 pieces of the 4. Okay, 2 pieces there, and then I'm just going to secure it with a double knot. So just do it like that. 1, and not too tight, because again, you don't want to be pulling on those warp strings, but you just want to secure it. And then we have quite a bit of excess here that we're just going to go ahead and clip with our scissors, and then just tuck those pieces and that knot underneath. And that's going to keep it nice and tight and secure. And there you go. Now we've added our second amount of gold thread. So we have our gold center, 2 amounts of roving, and then our second amount of gold threads. And we're ready to move on to the next step of adding more roving. Okay, so here we go. We're ready to go with our next step of adding 2 more rows of roving. I'm just going to split this the same as before, just to take that thickness down just a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add this next color of pink here. Same process, moving from the back up to the front. We're going to bring that roving there. Okay, leaving a tail. And then we're just going to go over under. And the reason why we've made this roving a little bit thicker is, as you can see, we're moving closer around to the outside, and so we want that thickness to kind of build. So this is, I'll do one more row or one round here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about how you'll be able to start to see the thickness and the dimension getting built from the outside to the in, or to the outer edge of the hoop, I guess I should say. Sorry. So we're just going to move our way around, and I'm going to show you. I'll bring it up here once I get back to my starting point of this pink. So we'll have it here. So again, it's just kind of keeping things symmetrical, moving the wool because it's quite pliable with your fingers, and squishing where you need to. Okay. And just kind of pulling it up and adjusting where we need to. So you're bringing that into that second row of gold threads, and we've made our way back to our starting point And I'm going to show you before I continue. I'm going to show you how you can see how it's, you know, thinner here, thicker, thicker, and we're just going to continue to make these rows thicker as we go, and you're going to see how much dimension and thickness that just adds. And that's the whole fun part of weaving, is all that texture to it. So we're going to continue along, and I'd like you to go ahead and just do 1 to 2 more rows, however many you see fit. And again, the size of your hoop, because each kit kind of has different size hoops that could allow for that. And we're just going to carry along here, and we're going to carry along to finish this pink, and then we're going to add the second amount of roving of the purple, and I'll catch up with you then. Okay, so I just wanted to go ahead and show a quick finishing step here of what we've done, where we finished off and we did 2 rows of our pink roving, and then I added my purple to give another 2 rounds, and you can see how the thickness of each. I'm just going to finish that. I'm going to show you how we move along here with our purple, and we've reached our starting point. I've done 2 rows of each, and we're going to go ahead then and finish off that row, take it to the back, and again I'm just going to show you how to keep this clean. So you tuck that one end in, okay, and we're just going to go ahead and we're going to clip both these excesses here. And then what I like to do is just to tuck in some of these fibers to keep that flatness there. So that's the back, it's nice and clean. And then we have our front, and I'm just going to show you sometimes how we just need to make sure that we're keeping that nice and symmetrical and moving it all in again towards the center. And there we have our next 2 rows of roving. So now what we are going to do is we're going to move on to our next step of adding 1 more round, the last amount of your gold threads, and then the last 2 bits of roving. Okay, so we're almost nearing the completion of our weave, which is very exciting. It's coming together and taking some really nice shape. We have our gold center with our first amount of gold thread. We have 2 rounds of roving, another round, the second round of gold threads, and then we have 2 more rounds of roving. Now we are ready to add the last set of gold threads, and it's going to be the exact same process that we did as we did with the second amount. So you're going to go ahead, you're going to join those 2 ends together. You're going to pull that and make all 4 ends together, loop it around a piece of your roving here. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to do over under technique of this last amount. Okay, so how to do that, oops, I'm sorry. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to go ahead and we're going to go over under, and we're going to probably do this one for about 2, maybe 3 rows, depending on how much we can get from it. But now that we've moved on this, the more important piece that I find with this one is that we have such a thicker amount than what we did here, right? So this one was fairly thin, and now you can see how the roving gets thicker. So you just want to make sure that those gold threads are up against it, but it's not pulling too tight, otherwise you won't see it. It'll just get hidden right underneath those that amount of roving there, because it is so thick. So you want it to be shown, and we're just going to go ahead and we're going to make our way around here, just as we did in the second step of roving. This one I do find a little bit trickier because we're moving closer to the outside and there's not as much space, and so sometimes I find with my fingers it just makes it a little bit challenging getting your way around. But we just are going to go ahead here and make our way around. So I'm just going to show that to you And you can see how we have it hooked on one. We're making our way around. And I'm just going to have you continue to add this amount of gold threads, and we're going to do that for 2 rounds if you can. If you only want 1 round, that is okay. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do 2, and then I'm going to catch up with you, and we're going to do the last final steps of our weave. Okay, so here we are. We're in our last and final stages for our weave. And so we've gone ahead and we've added that 3rd amount of gold threads, and you can see how everything is really staying in nice and complete and thickness from the inside out, or the center to the edge. And we're ready to add our last 2 amounts of roving. And I have that all set up here, and I'm happy with the thickness of this one. So I'm just going to go ahead and find a spot to start here at the back. Actually, I'm going to go this one. Okay, and we're going to go over under again for these last ones. I think I'm only going to do 1 round here because I want to finish off with 2 rounds of my blue. So you'll be able to see that as we've kind of moved along, we're getting closer and closer to the edge. Here, and so the amount of roving that we have left is going to depend on how many rows we are going to make. So I'm just going to go ahead and add this 3rd row in, or 2nd last row, I guess. 3rd row of set of 2 of roving. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead here, and I'm just, as I'm going, I'm just making sure that I'm kind of checking the thickness and keeping it nice and balanced there throughout the center. Okay, show that here, as we're just going to go ahead. And we're only going to do, I am only going to do, you can do as many as you want based on the amount of roving you have and the size of your hoop. But I'm just going to go ahead and just do 1 round of this green. And I'm just going to, as I go again, just kind of make sure I'm squishing it. And I'm not doing it too tight, because you'll see that round of gold is in there, but we don't want to squish it or pull this roving over top of it, right? Because then we won't even see it. So we're just going to go ahead here, move these over and along. Okay, just going to keep doing that. As part of our piece here. Okay. I realize that part of my weave is just a little bit squishy there on one end as opposed to the other, but that's okay. So we're just going to go ahead. We've reached our start, and we're going to take that piece down to the center. And there we go. So there is our 2nd amount of roving. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to do our final stages of just tucking that under, same as we have in all the last processes. We're going to go ahead and just clip that off. Okay, and there we go. And we're just going to add our last amount, and then I will catch up with you. Okay, so here we are. I just wanted to make one final point of the last steps here of completing our weave. I just have the last little bit of blue to go here, and I just want to show you how I kind of finish it off. So I'm just going to take that to the back, and what I like to do is finish this piece. I'm going to stick it under. And we're just going to tidy up any of our last little bits of ends here. We're just going to clip them and tuck them in as we need to. So then you can see as our project is finished, we have some nice You can tuck them in so that they don't pop out. Back is nice and clean, there's no ruffles. And what I like to do is I just like to go through and do a little bit of adjusting as we've made our way to the end. And the reason why I like to do that is because we've built a weave here all around, and you can see that that third row of gold just kind of peeks through, and that is okay. That is the fun part about the weave. So what we've done is we've created all of our colors. We've done our 2 rows. I'm really happy with how this turned out. I hope you are too. You can leave a couple tips that I sort of have. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. So I'd really like it if you could leave some comments, like, subscribe, and let me know how you feel about it. And we have it all set up. And one last point, if you're uncomfortable about leaving this open, you could put a piece of felt on the back. Just use a hot glue gun or glue or whatever to secure the felt on the back and just trim it. And because this is a hoop, you can go ahead and you could just put a little piece of cord here and hang it from that, or you can just use your hook and simply hang this right on the wall just like that. But there we go, there you have it. I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial that we have here created today of making your blue rhubarb, gold threads, DIY weaving kit, and created your first weave with me. So thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.